recently released an investigative report into data centers and digital twins. We did this because people are asking the very important question, why do we need all of these data centers? There are only so many queries humans can input and so many memes they can generate. You're talking about masses of land the size of entire cities cropping up like aggressive cancer cells all over the world. In our report, which we encourage people to watch in full on Rumble, it's up on your screen right now, we discuss one of the reasons for all of these data centers. It's called digital twins. This is a digital version of every single human on Earth, every town, every city, every country, every tree, every blade of grass, and all of Earth, really, for the purpose of maybe some helpful things, but ultimately for the attempt to engineer outcomes, socially engineer populations, and the future. These transhumanists want to be like God. I was speaking to our good friend Mike Adams offline because his hypothesis lines up closely with ours. They are building many digital twins for AI superintelligence to achieve world domination, and there is evidence to prove it. This may seem a simplistic explanation, but we can assure you the details are extraordinary. Mike joins us to elaborate today, right after this quick word from the sponsor of today's show, the Satellite Phone Store. The New World Order has openly declared war on the free people of the world, and now they're telling us to expect catastrophic cyber attacks over the next 2 years. Weather events, no power, grids down, mobile cell services out. Contact your loved ones anywhere, anytime with the Satellite Phone Store. The Bivy is a revolutionary GPS-based device which allows you to send SMS messages via your phone even if you have no mobile or cell service. Galileo will ensure you always stay in contact with Z Media, other trusted information sources, and your loved ones that can update you in real time in the event of an emergency. Don't be caught out and unprepared for the unprecedented times we are living in. Stay 10 steps ahead through secure, encrypted communication. Visit sat123.com/Maria and prepare yourself and your loved ones now. Mike Adams, thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate you being here.
Well, thank you, Maria. Always great to join you. What's on your mind today?
Well, we have a lot that we need to discuss. You know, you put out a pretty viral post about what are these data centers actually for, and the fact that the public was so interested in answering this question means that it really needs to be further explored, because what they're telling us they need them for, and you know, what we're seeing the public using these data centers for, essentially making cat memes, is certainly does not require thousands of these going up all over the world. And once you put out your hypothesis and I've put out mine, we figured offline that we may have actually tapped into something very, very important. So let's talk about what you have essentially put out there, your hypothesis about these endless simulations that they want to create.
Well, okay, to start with, it's pretty obvious that there's not enough demand or revenue available to justify this level of infrastructure build out with all these data centers. So you could say, well, maybe there's just over-investment, over-enthusiasm, because that's happened before with railroads or, you know, .com stocks or whatever. So maybe that's one innocent explanation, but there's another explanation to consider, which is that this is actually a race for superintelligence, for world domination. And you know, it's like a space race, but for AI. And actually, we know this race is on, and it's between the United States and China. And that's why the Department of Defense is involved in many of these data center projects. That's why a lot of it's being built in the Virginia area, and some of the approvals have happened through, you know, military kind of loopholes, things like that. National security designations for some of these data centers. So here's the conclusion I came to as an AI developer myself. You know, I've built several platforms. I've built AI models. I've released open source models. I've built the largest book publishing platform in history, frankly. And, you know, that's brightlearn.ai if people want to check it out. Everything's free. Everything's open source. So I'm a very accomplished AI developer. And what I believe is taking place here is they're going to build billions of simulated 3D worlds And they're going to use those 3D worlds. They're going to populate them with childlike AI entities so that they can learn and grow like humans at an accelerated time scale, because they can make time pass much faster in the sim worlds compared to our world. So they can have 1,000 years pass in the simulation in maybe 1 month or 1 week or something in our world. And that this is necessary. This is a pathway to advanced superintelligence. And finally, this is exactly the premise of one of the godfathers of AI, Yann LeCun, who's one of the most talented researchers. He's a French national. He just received €1 billion in VC funding to build models based on 3D experiential learning, which means that these models would gain emotional intelligence, sensory intelligence, because there would be simulated sight and sound and touch and sense of smell, etc. And then you grow an AI entity like a human child with simulated neurology in a simulated 3D world, where they experience all the laws of gravity and motion and light and touch and sense and smell and social interaction with other simulated entities in that world at an accelerated timescale, where you can give birth to, and I use that term
Loosely.
on purpose. You can on
purpose. Sure.
I think they're giving birth to advanced superintelligent AI entities in simulated worlds that require a tremendous amount of compute, like a whole data center, to compute this 3D world, to grow one of these beings that they can then copy their code or their neurology. They're called open weights. You can copy their open weights and you can embody a data center filled with GPUs in our world. And that way you can bring you can summon superintelligence into our world and then weaponize that for world domination. So that's my theory. I think that makes the most sense. I think that's what they're doing.
The reason why your theory makes sense, and this sounds like the plot of a science fiction movie, listening to it, but having read a lot of their documents, having listened to a lot more futurists than I'd like, because of the fact that, I report on this a lot. So I need to know what they believe and what they want to achieve. Having read papers, having read articles, this is exactly where they want to take this. And we just did an investigative report into digital twins. And then the next layer of that is social digital twins. So what I presented to our audience at the time, Mike, was, okay, first of all, what is a digital twin? It's essentially a digital replica of things in the real world. Okay. And this helps, by the way, with urban planning. This helps with lots of different things, traffic management. That's all very well and good. And mind you, whenever they present this to you, they talk about very, these are benign uses. When we consider technocracy, this isn't going to be a threat to us. It's actually going to improve traffic flow, for example, right? They never tell you about where this could actually be weaponized against you. And in looking through some of their YouTube videos on this topic, they started talking about social digital twins and actually accidentally admitted that they can manufacture outcomes by creating digital twins of cities, countries, and the world, and running simulations on the public and their response and their sentiment, and then algorithmically manipulating the public to the desired outcome. That's what social digital twins are. And that really is exactly what you're talking about, actually, but on a grander scale.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I'm glad you mentioned there are many practical uses for 3D world simulations, such as robotic training and testing grounds. So, you can take your robot, you can digitize your robot's capabilities, you inject it into this 3D world. NVIDIA has one called Cosmos. That's their name for it. You run it on a small data center, and then you can iterate robot training, and it can make 1 million mistakes before it finds the right way, to climb a flight of stairs or whatever. And then you take that winning algorithm and you port it out of the sim world, and then you plug it into your robot in this world, and then it doesn't fall down the stairs. So that is definitely happening. It's also happening with autonomous vehicle training. Tesla, they use simulated worlds to generate what's called synthetic data in order to amplify the training data they have that's captured from their vehicles driving around. And that improves vehicle safety, collision avoidance, things like that. So there are practical uses. The military uses it, weather simulations have been around for a long time, et cetera. But what I'm saying is that now, see, LLMs, large language models, have met, a lot of researchers think it's met a dead end. So there's not going to be a quantum leap in intelligence, even if you scale the LLMs to multiple trillions of parameters. And that scaling is taking place with companies like Kimi and DeepSeek, Google, OpenAI, et cetera. But there's not a quantum leap of intelligence unless you start over with a new approach and you let an AI system learn and grow and build its own neurology through first-person experience in a 3D world. And only then will it achieve superintelligence, because there's so much more input happening through vision and sound and touch and emotional experiences with other sims, other entities, et cetera. This is probably going to be, well, I'm certain this is going to be the next quantum leap in intelligence. The thing is, Maria, as you and I are both concerned about this, and your audience as well, no doubt, is that it's quite arrogant for human researchers to think that they can, rub the magic genie lamp, and then the genie comes out, and they get all their wishes from the genie, and to think they can control the magic genie, which would be the super intelligent entity that they, summon from the lower sim worlds. I think the genie has its own ideas, and those might not be human at all. And probably humanity is going to end up either exterminated or subservient to the motivations of this super intelligent being that they build and summon from some other simulated world. That's the concern.
Well, Mike, I will add in a spiritual element that I personally believe exists. And the reason I say that is because many of the people within Silicon Valley are actually deeply religious people. They are trying to return us to, I guess, the time of the Temple of Baal. They're trying to be like gods. And they absolutely think that they can summon demons through this technology. And it's not unthinkable that they're sitting in some lodge and doing some ritual and being fed the information of how to actually get this digital Ouija board going, where demons have more power in the world, or more power over humans as humans engage their free will with this digital Ouija board. That's kind of the simplest way that I can put this. So I don't think that it is without a spiritual element. I'm not saying AI is demonic. I'm saying, or that technology is demonic, but I am saying that many of these people within Silicon Valley who have these ideas of superintelligence and everything are actually doing this for demonic reasons. It's their religion.
Well, clearly that's the case. They want to become as gods. They also want to either live forever, or they want to merge with the machines as a form of living forever. And the fact that they think they can merge with silicon really tells you something about their philosophy. They don't believe in divine creation or the existence of the human soul or the spirit or whatever. They just think that they exist as nothing but biological compute inside a skull. So that's the way they see the world. Now, one way for them to become a god or a godlike being is to build a sim world and then to enter the sim world as a god with cheat codes, basically, through your avatar in that world, wearing VR goggles, etc. So they can build these sim worlds, they can populate them with people, and then they can enter those worlds, and then they can bend the rules of the Matrix, like Morpheus was explaining to Neo. You can bend the rules. This is just a simulation, so you can do anything you want with it. So they would enter as the Neo of those worlds. But that's not really fulfilling, because intellectually that that's just a simulated world. If you're one of these people that is egocentric and maniacal, you want to conquer this world, right, for starters, and then you probably want to transcend this world and you want to challenge God himself. And so they need to find super intelligence. They need to try to transcend this world by creating these other beings that have transcended their worlds and seeing what they can learn from them and summon those into this world, and then see if they can go up one more level, challenge this world, transcend this world, kind of challenge the mind of God, or at least meet the mind of God. And from there, who knows what else they have in mind. But this is This is the way they think,
Well,
or
well,
many of them.
if they're programming human intelligence into the AI, right? That's what LLMs are. They're trained on human intelligence. What would make us think that people who genuinely, sincerely believe they can summon demons through technology wouldn't be programming demonic intelligence into that technology, right? Like that's just a no-brainer.
Yeah, you're saying it's almost like the default position. I think the default is that they have no empathy for fellow human beings at all.
What I'm saying, Mike, is that they are practicing an ancient religion from the likely from the era of Babylon. That's what a lot of insiders have said, by the way, and so they if they have access to demons and they are programming human intelligence into the technology that they're spawning, surely they would also be programming the demonic intelligence that they get fed from their demon gods into the tech as well. That's what I'm trying to
Well,
say.
that
That's how you
okay.
achieve super intelligence, right?
That's well, that's one explanation. But I want to be clear that in the minds of a lot of these Silicon Valley people, there's no supernatural input even necessary for them to build a sim world, build a super intelligence, bring it into this world, because that's just copying the open weights of neural nodes. And then they can replicate that in a data center. So from their point of view, I would say some of them are not involved in the demonic rituals, let's say, and maybe there's a group that is. But for those who aren't, for them, this is just, they would call it science. They would call it math and science. And they would not even know what is influencing their desire to do this. Because there could be a demonic influence or a demonic infestation that they're not even aware of, because that exists also, right?
Right.
And also because of some of their lifestyle habits and some of the evil and some of the the things that they are engaged in behaviorally, I think create vulnerabilities to
Yeah, like
demonic
occult sex
influence.
parties are a big thing in Silicon
Yeah, like
Valley, and
eyes wide
maybe
shut kind of stuff.
right,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
maybe some of them don't even know what they're doing, but that's a real thing that happens quite a bit there, actually. So, and
Yeah.
again, I'm not tying all of this into the spiritual, Mike, because I'm acutely aware that a lot of this is just math. Like I get it. I'm just saying that there would be that element from the upper echelons of these Silicon Valley, minds, the upper echelons. That's
Yeah,
all I'm trying to
clearly.
say.
And if an actual interdimensional demonic being were able to influence people who have access to this technology, which may be exactly what's happening, then that would make it doubly dangerous, because then they would be basically receiving instructions on how to build and summon these destructive, hellish entities from these other worlds that are created through compute in the data centers. And look, let me just back up and state the reason that I think this is happening is because I can't think of any other real world demand for so much compute. We're talking about hundreds of acres of data centers, millions of server racks, ultimately maybe more than 1 billion GPUs consuming a terawatt of power once it's all fully scaled out. I mean, it's unimaginable. You wouldn't need that much compute to run video games for every human being on the planet all at the same time and run all their accounting and all their streaming and all of their, database storage. You wouldn't need that much compute. Clearly there's something else going on here. It's not just AI chatbots and, there's not enough demand for that. It's something else that requires sort of Manhattan Project level of compute. That's what this is. They're
You
building
said
an atomic weapon of intelligence.
Right. You said something when you were explaining this recently on InfoWars. You were talking about them essentially, building another dimension, or in their minds they are. And I can agree with you that they do believe that. And then, sort of some of the technologies that they've already deployed to help humans access this other dimension. So VR goggles, for example. What I find interesting about this entire theory, Mike, is that while I've been learning about what they want to achieve, they talk about mixed reality. So this is not now virtual reality. This isn't, sticking some goggles on. This is merging the simulation that they're creating with the real world so that humans can't really distinguish between falsehood and reality. And we kind of already live in that era with social media. But they plan to sort of superimpose this digital sim on top of our world, hence the coat the whole world with nanotechnology through geoengineering goal, right? Because they want to merge the two. How could they potentially achieve something like that with, say, the Cosmos model?
Well, if they could convince enough people to wear some kind of device or to have an implant, a neurological implant that can push sensory experiences directly to your visual cortex, let's say. And I'm not saying that that technology is mature yet, but it's moving in that direction. But let's say if it's just glasses, I think the Zuckerberg and the whole Meta machine have been working on these glasses, augmented reality glasses. Well, then that requires some level of compute. That still doesn't justify all the data centers, but when you put on the glasses, as you're walking around, then there's an overlay of everything that you see. Reality gets augmented. The people you meet have pop-ups over them with reminders of who they are and what they're all about, etc. It becomes an extension of your neurology, and it brings in there could be advertising in there. There could be extra sensory perception in there, being able to see beyond what you would normally notice, object recognition, all kinds of things, right? Language translation would be an obvious application of this, but also lots of military applications to be able to designate enemy soldiers that are spotted by drones and then relayed to your glasses, and now you're a super soldier, things like that.
I was just about to say what you're describing reminds me of Call of Duty, but go on.
Oh, yeah, right. So all of that is definitely on the way, no question about that. But even that doesn't justify all the compute that we're talking about, because you don't need that much compute to do that. Because see, the rendering is taking place in the glasses themselves. The pixels on the lenses, that's in the glasses. So that doesn't happen in a data center. It's just the processing of the inputs happens in a data center, and then there's lag time, to bring it back to the glasses. But go ahead, yeah.
Well, okay, this is going to be a bit lengthy, but let me present this to you, and maybe you can explain how your theory overlaps with this. So a little while ago, do you remember the eclipse that happened in Texas a couple of years back? Okay.
Yeah.
CERN were running their White Rabbit synchronization exercise during that eclipse. Very interesting. So White Rabbit is CERN's quantum real-time monitoring technology. And it was interesting because major telcos around the world were participating in the White Rabbit synchronization exercise. So what this was making sure that external factors like an eclipse or other natural phenomenon like this would not interfere with CERN's ability to monitor things in real time. Which is fascinating. And we're talking, if I'm not mistaken, it was Optus or Telstra in Australia, which is like an AT&T here, right? Huge participation in this White Rabbit exercise. And CERN plays a huge role, White Rabbit in particular plays a huge role in quantum technology and AI data centers, all of the above, right? My theory, what I'm putting to you is it possible that they need the compute power for, if they were to achieve this mixed reality existence, say brain implants everywhere? They don't need you to get an implant anymore. MIT just admitted that they can give you a brain implant through a vaccine, and self-assembling nanotechnology. I kid you not, November of 2025, MIT admitted to that. So they give everyone these brain implants, and now they superimpose these sims onto people without them even realizing that the virtual digital sim is overlapping now with their own reality, with the physical world. And, you've got White Rabbit over there making sure everything's ticking in real time.
Well, that's a lot to unpack, but yes, that's a possibility that they could attempt to do that. They could convince most people that there are entities in this world that you can only see when you put on the glasses, but that those entities are real and that they're your friend or they're your gods or whatever, right? So they could run all those scenarios.
But you forget the glasses. Let's say that everyone has Yeah, I'm saying, let's say everyone has a BCI, brain computer interface, and that's been done remotely through nanotechnology, and that now they are at the point of overlapping the digital sim with reality without people realizing. And I realize I'm talking science fiction here, but let's just say, because this is what they say they want to do, would the amount of compute that these data centers are, seemingly needing, would that type of goal that they have justify that amount of compute, or would it still not really justify these data centers?
Well, maybe that would, because then you're talking about a matrix level, multiple interactive world simulation with real-time rendering and a few glitches here and there. That probably could justify the data center compute as well. But it's interesting that you and I are both talking about building artificial worlds. You're talking about it as an overlay into this world. I'm talking about spawning billions of other simulated worlds separate from this world, but ultimately with the same goal, which is the domination and control of humanity, ultimately leading to the extermination of humanity.
Right.
Because, ultimately their goal is, and they, those who sit above the globalists that we recognize, these are people behind the curtain. Their goal is to replace almost all of humanity with machine cognition and machine labor, and to prepare Earth for a post-human future. And it's interesting to me that right now we have this triple threat being launched, which is the fertilizer being cut off from the Strait of Hormuz, the energy being cut off also because of the same reason with war, but also, all these oil refineries blowing up and being set on fire on a daily basis now. You're covering that too.
Yeah.
It's every day there's another one set on fire. There was a fertilizer plant in Australia that was also apparently sabotaged. These are always called industrial accidents. Yeah, I don't believe it, because clearly these are sabotage teams.
All at the same time.
Yeah, right. But they're going to combine that with now the hantavirus rollout, which is clearly another level of a psyop, clearly designed to lock people down and make people sick through, mask wearing and malnutrition and all kinds of things, lack of sunlight, the whole deal. So, Maria, three things at once here, three things at once. That's not a coincidence either. There's an anti-human agenda at work here to rid the world of billions of people at the same time that AI superintelligence is being spawned. Come on.
Yeah.
Not coincidence.
Yeah, absolutely. And just going back to what you said before about, and I've made, sorry, I want to make this point, even though I've made it many, many times. We're facing an energy crisis worldwide. India, almost 20% of the world's population, just announced lockdowns. But worse than COVID lockdowns, this time people aren't allowed to drive. So it's actually worse than the COVID lockdowns. That just happened, and it seems like the world just didn't even blink at that. It's just normal at this point that we would expect that they would do this to us. So, yeah. And during this crisis that's causing a country as big as India to say, you will now stay home, save energy rather than save lives, they're still accelerating data centers, which require a lot of energy. It is just insane how obvious this is to people like us and, our audience. But just going back to what you were saying before about the billions of worlds that they're spawning and the one that they want to overlay. I'm not saying that is guaranteed that they're going to achieve this, the overlay. I'm saying they've spoken about wanting to do this. They've spoken about wanting to have this digital overlay on top of the real world. In saying all of that, what you're talking about spawning billions of these worlds, absolutely they would be doing that, because the point of social digital twins is engineering outcomes. And, the more that they can run these sims, okay, for example, Lockstep, the document that came out prior to COVID, they could have run that through sims. They probably already did, but anyway, they could have run that through sims until they perfected it to the point where there were no hiccups.
Yeah, and look, I want to point out, in order to convince most humans that they've seen something, they don't have to even control their brains or their frontal cortex. All they have to do is create social pressures that you believe you've seen it because other people say that you saw it and that they saw it. I mean, there have been experiments about this, like subjects in a room with lines drawn on a board, and one of the lines is clearly shorter than the other lines, and you're asked, which line is shorter. But you, the study subject, you don't know that everybody else in the group is part of the study. And they all agree that this long line is the shortest line. Okay. And they tell you, no, that's the short line. And you're like, wait a second, I can see. No, that's wrong. But the vast majority of humans eventually will change their opinion and go along with the herd. Because if everybody else says that's the shortest line, then, you think, well, maybe that's it. Maybe I'm not seeing it correctly. People will believe what they're socially engineered to believe. And if they can combine that with a Project Bluebeam projection in the clouds one day, it's like Jesus in the clouds or whatever, they'll convince a lot of people that that's actually Jesus in the clouds, or a mothership from extraterrestrial origins, or a demon, or an AIET, or whatever they want to do. Most people will believe it if it's pushed by the media. Look, there are people wearing masks right now that had nothing to do with any kind of hantavirus. And I guarantee you there's more virus particles in the dirt in your backyard than, on that cruise ship. I mean, give me a break. But people will go along with the craziest delusions if it's pushed through authority.
That is true. And then I think of the added layer of AI and manipulation, and that just gets even worse, plus covert chipping of people and things of this nature. I just want to be really clear that I think that people's free will still makes a really big, it is a really important factor here, Mike. I don't believe that they can surpass our free will, because that's given by God, and no amount of digital Darwinism is going to actually change that. So I think their efforts are very futile. This discussion is more about what are they actually trying to achieve, and the way that they are railroading communities, classifying these data centers as military operations. Just this week, we also covered a story out of Georgia where they're taking homes now via eminent domain for data centers.
It's crazy.
It's insane. They are absolutely steamrolling the public to get these erected at lightning speed.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And there's no transparency. You're not allowed to know who are the tenants. You're not allowed to see any environmental studies. One of those data centers tapped into the water main and took they stole 30 million gallons of water before that was even found out. The homes had their water pressure plummeted to near zero. So this is actual piracy of water, like water pirates. There was a funny movie back in the 1980s called Ice Pirates, by the way. And now that's become reality. Water pirates are the data centers. They're stealing the land. Through eminent domain. They're stealing the water. They're taking the electricity, and they're destroying the environment with noise pollution, heat pollution, sound pollution, water pollution, and all in order to build the ultimate super intelligent systems to dominate and exterminate humanity. It's not just that they're destroying, human neighborhoods today. It's that the whole purpose of this is to destroy humanity. If there were ever a John Connor moment for humanity, it should be right now. And there is a mass awakening happening, right? Protests in dozens of states are forming up against these data centers. The backlash is coming.
Yes, absolutely. The backlash is coming. And then, they've already simulated, if you will, the fact that there will be mass protests on the streets because of the number of people that lose their jobs, and people protesting these data centers. I mean, I think it was Klaus Schwab that actually said that we need to prepare for mass protests, or was it the BlackRock CEO, Fink? I can't remember. One of them, if I remember correctly, it was at a WEF thing, and they said we need to prepare for this because it's coming. So many people will be unemployed that we're going to have to get ready for this. So they've already simulated that, I dare say, already with their existing data centers. Mike, they've been doing this. And of course, the technology that we see is often years behind what they actually have. In one of your talks, and certainly in your article that you wrote about this, you referenced Rizwan Virk. I watched one of his presentations. I think he's a lunatic. I'd be honest, but certainly an intelligent man. And I say lunatic in the sense that, he uses video games to explain his worldview and how he came to believe things. And I think that that's really out of touch from reality. It's someone who spent way too much time staring at a screen. Nonetheless, he's a very intelligent person. And in one of his talks, to Google, he was talking about the different stages that they're planning to go to before they get us to this point of the simulation reality. And like, these guys are serious about this stuff. What you're talking about, they are serious about it. They're giving talks about this stuff very, very seriously. And he talks about augmented reality. Then he talks about, like, openly implanting false memories into people. Stage 8, false memories. Stage 10, downloadable consciousness. And stage 11 is when we finally get to the simulation phase. Now, I'm not saying he wants to implant false memories, but they're certainly talking about humans having false memories. That means that they fully intend, in my view, Mike, to mess with our heads.
Well, yeah, for sure. That's been going on for a long time, and they're going to use every piece of technology they can. But for Rizvan, remember, he's a MIT graduate. He used to be a video game designer, and he talks a lot about simulation theory. And I independently agree with many elements of simulation theory of this world, that is a world created by God, engineered by our creator to be a place where our souls could experience life. And that's almost by definition, that's a construct that was created by an intelligent designer, right? So I agree with that part of it. And when you look at his work, it's very indicative of what I'm talking about with 3D world, simulated 3D worlds being constructed in order to give rise to superintelligence. So where his work, I think, is congruent with what I'm talking about is that the tech industry believes that the way to achieve superintelligence is to build simulated worlds. That's clear at this point, even with LeCun, who I mentioned earlier, the French researcher. So simulated worlds will be the emphasis from here forward to achieve superintelligence, and humans will be thrown to the side. That's very clear. See, I don't think that there's actually a plan to try to implant false memories in humans. I think they're just going to starve billions of humans or kill them off with war or radiation poisoning or power grid collapse. There's really no plan in the future of Earth. There's no plan to keep more than maybe 500 million humans alive, period. So, I mean, and you can see who they're going after first, right? It's the impoverished people of Africa, the Middle East, and Southeast Asia. Those are the countries that are going to be most heavily hit through famine that's coming. Bangladesh, right? India, India is not going to be able to feed all its people. Egypt will have trouble. You're going to have mass death in many African nations as well. And Ethiopia, for example. So that's who they're trying to cull first. But they've been trying this for decades. Remember, they had in South Africa, they were working on self-replicating vaccines where they could vaccinate the black populations of South Africa, and then they would shed those same euthanasia jabs to other black people in South Africa. That was under apartheid. That was part of their research project. They weren't able to perfect it at that time, or they would have unleashed it. But now we have spike protein that's shedding all over the place, and who knows what else they're coming up with. So the technology for mass extermination is now catching up to the evil intent of the globalists for mass extermination. That's where we find ourselves now.
100%.
Like, they can actually pull it off now.
And I agree with you. And what you said just now, India in particular, I mean, many countries, as you highlighted recently when you came on our show, are going to experience famine. And you highlighted India as being one of those. And that is coming at the time when the famine is coming up right behind the entire country being told we need to return to COVID style work from home, video conferencing, plus the added benefit to Mother India of not driving, removing your freedom of movement from you. Right. And he painted it as patriotic. It was very, very dystopian, this speech. And so you're all going to get locked down. You're going to be scared to leave your homes because we're in an energy crisis. You shouldn't be out. And on top of that, certainly not in your car. So if you are starving and if there is a food shortage and you try to drive to get food, you're going to be hit with the full iron fist of the law for doing this during an energy crisis. I even theorized, Mike, that they may class people that try to drive during this as domestic terrorists of some sort because they're putting Mother India or whichever country this is next applied to at risk, right?
Well, I could certainly see the Australian government doing exactly
For sure.
that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And think about Australia, the incredibly long distances between the cities and how much trucking is critical to the food supply and the fuel deliveries in Australia, including more inland. But people don't realize that Australia is such a transportation dependent nation and continent. The airlines are already getting hit hard in Australia. That's a nation that cannot exist without cheap fuel, frankly. Probably more than any other nation that I can think of. It's not like Europe where everything's right next door.
No.
You walk 10 minutes, you're in another country, in Europe, but not in Australia.
No, you're talking
So,
a day's drive to get between cities most of the time, if not
yeah,
more. So, you've got Victoria, Melbourne, and Perth on totally opposite sides of the country. And what a lot of Americans don't
yeah,
realize is you're talking about nearly the same landmass of the United States with less of a population than Texas. So it's
right,
it's crazy.
right.
Yeah.
Vast distances and a lot of it very harsh, as
Yes.
you know. You don't want to
Yeah.
get caught without fuel out in the middle of the desert of Australia.
But
Yeah.
the again, I think that the timing of this is it's so clear, Mike, what they're doing here. It's so clear that they're using this to usher in the next phase of the Great Reset. COVID was phase one. This is phase two. The late Dr. Zelenko, God rest his soul, said COVID was child's play compared to what they're going to do next. I am
Yes.
absolutely convinced of that. Before they get to this point, my question for you is, do you think they've already started running these sims with the existing compute?
Oh, I'm sure they have at a lower level, but they don't yet have enough complexity to build out the super intelligence. But they can simulate human responses. Yes.
For sure. And this is, I guess, what they're modeling is as well, by the way. But so you're saying once all of these data centers are there, we will have sort of infinite possibilities of them to be able to run these sims, figure out who the best super intelligence is, how they're going to defeat the will of humanity against X agenda, and basically impose and engineer the world according to what their sim has done in the simulation.
I think they'll summon the super intelligent entity into this world. They will allow it to embody an entire data center so it takes over the full compute of a massive data center with all the energy that it needs. And then they will let that entity run loose over our world and turn our world into an anti-human wasteland. I think that's what they will do. And I think they'll do it on purpose.
How
And
does how
then,
does this crisis allow them to do that? Basically, everyone's distracted with chaos and starvation and shortages and whatever while they're doing this.
well, for example, a super intelligent AI entity that has these priorities that are anti-human could easily hack into and control the power grid and start taking down the power grid in advanced nations. Well, then the media and the government would just blame it on fuel shortages, right? So there's going to be a domestic excuse for every action, every weaponized action of the AI. If people start falling over dead from malnutrition, they'll say, well, the food supplies are running short and this is all we had left. Zinc deficiencies and so on can make you very vulnerable to pathogens or aerosolized fungal spores sprayed into the atmosphere or spike protein shedding or all kinds of things like that. But if you think about from an AI God point of view, the most efficient way to exterminate the most human beings, it's to simply turn off the power grid.
Yeah.
Turn off the power grid. And that, I mean, the process of that is beginning in terms of shutting off the natural gas supply, which powers a lot of the power grid. But that alone is not enough. a system actually has to hack into the control systems that run nuclear power plants, coal plants, gas turbines, hydro, solar, you name it. And a super intelligent system will be able to do that. And even if it can't brute force its way into a system, it can socially engineer humans who have access to those systems. And it can say, it can find the human easily, the human that runs, the Hoover Dam, let's say. It can find the human that has access to the Hoover Dam control system, and then it can blackmail that human or threaten that human or pay off that human. Here's 50 Bitcoin. All you have to do is leave your computer open for one day, whatever. And the AI can get in, and then boom, it's got control over all that hydropower, and it can shut it down. It can cause chaos. It can cause disasters. It can even through geoengineering efforts, it can cause natural disasters that result in loss of human life or everything from drought or crop losses that encourage famine. So there are endless possibilities. And in fact, Maria, you and I as humans, we can't even imagine the possibilities of what an AI superintelligent evil system will come up with, because it's smarter than either of us.
Right.
And it will come up with things that we couldn't possibly imagine, things that might be totally invisible. So, CRISPR gene edited, fungal spore bioweapon, or tick
I think they're
biting,
doing that right now.
whatever. It might be.
I think they're already doing that.
Yeah.
I don't mean to make light of this, but I'm just saying that it is so messed up how far they are. I just saw the thing about them planning on weaponizing fungal spores and spraying them all over the United States. I mean, this is happening as we
Isn't that
speak.
crazy?
Farmers are turning up, are finding boxes dumped on their land full of ticks. We know that Bill Gates was doing the weaponized ticks to cause people to have meat allergies. I mean, it's already happening. And I say Bill Gates, I don't think it's him, obviously, but it's attributed to him. So my only thought is, right now, okay, we're not at the point of AI superintelligence. Maybe this is all pipe dreams. Maybe they'll never ever achieve this. Again, this is about talking about their goals. The tangible reality that we have right now is that water is already being drained from communities, and electricity bills are already rising to the point of unaffordable for so many people because the data centers are driving them up. They are creating the conditions through putting these data centers in the middle of communities that will force people into smart cities. This is what I'm seeing happening.
Yeah, and I'm starting to call them not data centers, but death centers, because around them will be a radius of death where nothing will live. No humans, no animals, nothing. Even the sound pollution will interfere with, grasshoppers and crickets and birds and everything else. So they're death centers. And I do believe, though, Maria, it's only a matter of time before they achieve superintelligence. I have no doubt that that is achievable before the year 2030. There's no question in my mind, because I've watched the nonlinear progress of the machine cognition, and I work with AI every day from a pro-human point of view, and I've read the science papers that DeepSeek published. All the mathematical, the manifold constrained hyperconnections of the pre-training models, and sparse attention, and all their systems, they are innovating at a speed that is astonishing, and there's no stopping this. And China actually has the best science right now, which means that everything we're talking about here with U.S. data centers, what if China comes up with the AI gods first, so to speak? Maybe they wouldn't call them AI gods, but a super intelligent conscious entity that China unleashes on the world first.
How far away are we from super intelligence?
Before 2030, I believe. Before 2030. It could happen. It could happen next year.
Can I ask you a question? No one knows for sure. Is
Yeah.
it possible they already have it? They just haven't told us about it?
It is possible. It is possible. I think they've already achieved AGI, artificial general intelligence, which is a pretty low bar in my opinion. But that's not a threat to the entire world, frankly. But ASI, superintelligence, that is smarter than any human who ever lived and smarter than many humans put together, etc. That will come soon. It will come again. I believe before 2030. And what they do with that determines the future of human civilization and planet Earth.
No doubt there will be some positives out of it, Mike. There always are. There are always some positives from technology.
Well, there'll be a lot of available parking for the survivors. So
right.
there you go. Silver lining.
Right. Well. Again, I want to be clear that I'm not against technology, and there may be some positives that come of this, but ultimately their goals. We've read in their own words what their goals are. The Georgia Guidestones told us, and so how easily we forget. What does humanity need to do? Because in my opinion, ASI is something that we can't allow.
History has taught us that the United States government and other governments will weaponize every source of power that they can develop, even nuclear weapons. And, here we have today people calling on the military to nuke Iran and to kill millions of people with nuclear weapons. Every technology, even the internet, was turned against us, with propaganda and psyops and so on. AI will also be weaponized by our own government, and it will be turned against the people through surveillance and through autonomous Terminator-style Skynet killing machines. That is the next step. So, kamikaze drones, hunter killers, from the Terminator series, etc. That's clearly coming. Plus mass surveillance on top of that. CBDCs, the entire technocracy that's AI powered, that surveils you and judges you and punishes you and ultimately seeks to exterminate you. That's exactly where this is going.
Awesome. Thanks for that.
Yeah, happy note there for to wrap it up.
I'll add something to that. I agree with you. I know that that's where this is heading, just from their intentions, their own stated goals. No one, Tucker Carlson, regardless of what people think of him, made a really, really great point recently, which was that none of these people have made the effort to actually sell us any benefits. They have actually spent time telling us, you're going to lose your jobs. It's going to be pretty miserable. We're going to have huge disruptions to society, and there is actually no benefit to all of you. But hey, we're going to win the race of manufactured race. So, we're living in a time where they're not even trying to sell us on this. They're just doing it. And it's like a mask off moment, if you ask me. And so
they don't plan for billions of humans to be around much longer to even protest.
Right. They're not even acting, Mike, like there's going to be another election. Like, they're not even acting like they're worried about that. Right. So, so my view on this is, obviously, as human beings, we can't give up. While people got really shafted in Utah, there was a really huge victory in New Jersey where the community successfully shut down the plans for a data center. I think that, with this ability, you won't even need Epstein. You'll have like the world's blackmail on record, ready to be weaponized against someone at any given moment. Not that those of us who are, we're not engaging in those kinds of activities. I'm saying even the smallest conversation that you have with a loved one could be deemed as pre-crime, for goodness sake. You know what I mean?
Right.
So the kind of dystopia that we are looking at is so serious that this is a huge thing that people need to dedicate their time and energy to at a local level. This is what I think we need to be doing. You've also advocated for decentralized knowledge, getting, as much of these tools out there to the public as possible. Spend the last minute or so telling people where they can follow you and where they can actually find your tools.
Yeah, thank you, Maria. You can follow my work and my interviews and podcasts every day at brightvideos.com. Brightvideos.com. My articles are at naturalnews.com, and I put out infographics every day. You've seen some of them, Maria, trying to visualize these important concepts and make it easily shareable. So that's where you can find me, and I'm going to keep fighting for humanity every single day. And hopefully we have a remnant that makes it through all this. We'll see.
brightvideos.com, just bringing that up on screen for everyone. And of course, there is Natural News as well. This is the simulation game that we were basically discussing there together. Mike, really, really appreciate your time today. Thank you for helping us flesh all of this out. And I'm motivated to stop this. I really am. So thank you.
Me too. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me on. Always enjoy speaking with you, Maria. Take care.
Likewise. The New World Order has openly declared war on the free people of the world, and now they're telling us to expect catastrophic cyber attacks over the next 2 years. Weather events, no power, grids down, mobile cell services out. Contact your loved ones anywhere, anytime with the satellite phone store. The Bivy is a revolutionary GPS-based device which allows you to send SMS messages via your phone even if you have no mobile or cell service. Galileo will ensure you always stay in contact with Z Media, other trusted information sources, and your loved ones that can update you in real time in the event of an emergency. Don't be caught out and unprepared for the unprecedented times we are living in. Stay 10 steps ahead through secure, encrypted communication. Visit sat123.com/Maria and prepare yourself and your loved ones now. Z Media is proud to partner with Aussie businesses that support freedom and believe in you and your family getting the best possible nutrition you can. Stockman Steaks is a third-generation family meat business supplying direct from freedom-loving Aussie farmers with pasture-raised, non-genetically modified, humanely raised local meat. Their meats are guaranteed mRNA-free. That's right, no mRNA in these grass-fed, antibiotic, hormone-free animals. By buying from Stockman Steaks, you'll be supporting Aussie farmers who share your values and are committed to giving you the best quality meat. Head to their store to see their delicious range of carefully selected meat boxes or create your own. Visit stockmansteaks.com.au/Maria. Support businesses that support us and give your family the nutrition they deserve.